Kamala Harris is forced to eat crow. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, we did it, baby. Yesterday, it was absolutely official. In the midst of one of the biggest snowstorms in recent memory in Washington, D.C., much of the city snowed under. Hence, the left couldn't come out with the protests that they were planning. Yet the Senate, the House, Congress convened to finally certify the election of President Donald J. Trump. And after yesterday's official certification, in which Kamala Harris, the vice president still of the Senate, he's got about, 2 weeks left to go. She was forced to read the electoral count state by state by state. And make no mistake about it, she looked absolutely miserable. In fact, she looked humiliated. You want to talk about sour grapes? Here is a woman who said she was going to win the election against Trump. She helped lead a coup to overthrow Biden from the ballot, to place herself at the top of the ballot, and there she was, having now to certify the election victory of her opponent and to certify the election defeat of herself. Democrats, you could see the despair, the bitterness, the sadness on every single one of their faces. Republicans, on the other hand, it was happy days are here again. You could almost hear the champagne corks popping in Congress. Listen now, as Kamala Harris had to consistently read the electoral vote count for president, and the Republicans, led by Speaker Mike Johnson, were clapping, cheering, at times rising, giving standing ovations, interrupting Kamala's vote count because Trump was won, Kamala has lost. It is now official. Donald Trump will be inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States, and there is nothing now the Democrats can do about it. Roll cut 11. Mike.
The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 312 votes. Kamala D. Harris of the state of California has received 226 votes.
And don't let the door hit you on the way out. So it wasn't just that this was obviously a clear personal humiliation for Kamala Harris. To me, the more important point is, what happened to Jamie Raskin? What happened to the progressives in the Democratic Party? What happened to the rabid anti-never-Trumpers? The resistance! Trump is Hitler! Do you remember that? How MSNBC, this is CNN. So many Democrats said they refuse to certify Donald Trump. They will block the certification. They will do everything in their power to make sure that this Hitler, as they call him, this threat to democracy, this man who embodies fascism and the end of America as we know it, the end of our elections, the end of our freedoms, the end of our democracy. Remember, that's what they claimed consistently throughout all of 2024, all the way throughout the election campaign. You inaugurate Donald Trump, you put Trump in the presidency, it is the end of America, period. And there they were yesterday, joking, backslapping. I mean, yeah, the Democrats were depressed. They lost. Many of them looking at their phones, but they're drinking coffee. They're stuffing their face. They're getting ready for the midterms. They're getting ready to try to block Trump's agenda. In other words, it was all BS. It was all smoke and mirrors. It was all propaganda. They never believed a single word of it. Now, what I found fascinating is as the snow essentially buried under Washington and protesters who wanted to come out in massive numbers to demand that Trump not be certified. In other words, the Democrats were hoping to have their own January 6th. All we got now was how this process, this January 6th yesterday, was so radically different from that of 4 years ago. And so, again, one last time, they had to go to that tape over and over, go to that well about how, yep, January 6, 2021, a day that will live in infamy, was one of the worst days in American history. MSNBC went on all day. Democrats went in front of the cameras and said they'll never forget what happened 4 years ago. CNN said this is one of the darkest moments in American history. In fact, it got so ridiculous as they were going on, again, recycling all of the arguments they made over and over and over about how horrible January 6 was 4 years ago. It culminated in this absurdity. Listen now to Sonny Hostin. Yep, that liberal moron. This is, by the way, who watches that show? I mean, honestly, it gets stupider by the day. Just when you think they can't outdo themselves, they always find a way to outdo themselves. Listen now to Sonny Hostin on The View saying January 6 will live on just like, listen to this, Roll Cut 13. Mike.
I think we need to find moral clarity, in this country. And I just remember after January 6th, you had someone like Mitch McConnell placing the blame on January 6th where it belonged, squarely on Donald Trump's shoulders. Mm-hmm. And then you started seeing people backtrack that mm-hmm. and losing their moral center. You had Condoleezza Rice, I believe, on this very show saying, we need to move on from January 6th. Mm-hmm. I say no. You don't move on because January 6th was an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II, things that happened, like the Holocaust, chattel slavery, we need to never forget because past becomes prologue if you forget any race.
I mean, this is, even by their standards, honestly, the Holocaust? I'm sorry. I mean, it's so absurd you have to just laugh in their face. Chattel slavery? So you're going to compare now what happened 4 years ago, which was, what do you want to call it? An out-of-control protest? You want to call it even a riot? Okay. They breached the Capitol. You're going to compare that to the extermination of 6 million Jews in death camps and gas ovens all across Eastern Europe? Lady, you got a serious screw loose. Like, this is what I'm saying. These people are insane. And they can't let January 6th go. Now, what they can't accept, and this is to me what's a little bit frightening about, I mean, frankly, it's funny and it's frightening simultaneously. It's funny because they're such clowns. I mean, really, you look at people and you go, can you really be that stupid? No, really. And they pay you for your opinions? They actually give you a show and you hear the lemmings in the background? Ah, it can never be forgotten. Yeah, the Holocaust, slavery, yeah, Auschwitz, yeah. The American people heard about January 6th nonstop for 4 freaking years. They did a fake committee, the Unselect Committee, and they rolled out propaganda after propaganda after propaganda. And newspapers editorialized endlessly. And the TV news, all they did was loop January 6th over and over and over. Joe Biden made it the centerpiece of his presidency. He made it the centerpiece of his election campaign. Kamala made it the centerpiece of her election campaign. And the American people rendered their verdict. It wasn't that serious. It's time to move on. Get over it. It was a tempest in a teapot. Let it go. And they can't let it go. And I'm telling you, one of the reasons why, there are many, but one of the reasons why Kamala lost and the Democrats got slaughtered is because they wouldn't let go of the January 6th narrative. Well, you know what? You keep going on about January 6th because it is an absolute political loser. Your calls next.
This announcement of the state of the vote by the President of the Senate shall be deemed a sufficient declaration of the persons elected President and Vice President of the United States, each for a term beginning on the 20th day of January 2025, and shall be entered together with the list of the votes on the journals of the House and the Senate. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. 620 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. So, after all what was said and done, and the doom and the gloom, and the banging on the table, and the threats, Trump is going to be Hitler. We can't ever allow him to be certified. He can never, ever become president of the United States. Yesterday, January 6th, Trump was officially certified, along with J.D. Vance, to be vice president, but Trump will now be, for certain, the 47th president of the United States. Now, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868 is the number. You know, what I find incredible is how many liberals, and they're still texting into the show. By the way, you can text us 70470, and they're texting into the show about how Trump should be ashamed of January 6th 4 years ago, and how this was the darkest or one of the darkest moments in American history. So now it's not only worse than 9/11, it's not only worse than Pearl Harbor, it's the worst thing since the Civil War. No. Now it's right up there with the Holocaust, according to Sonny Hostin. I mean, this is how insane and unhinged they've become in their rabid hatred for Trump. And here's what they don't understand, and I'll lay it out for them as simply as I can. The reason why there were protests on January 6th 4 years ago was because Joe Biden stole the election. That's it. The difference between this January 6th, i.e. yesterday, and the January 6th of 4 years ago is that Biden stole the election. Trump didn't. It really, that's it. There's nothing else. There's nothing else to add to this. He won. Trump won fair and square. He beat Kamala. He beat her good. He beat her with every demographic practically. He beat her in the Electoral College. He beat her in the popular vote. He ran the entire table. He won every single swing state. Your guy in 2020 had to rely on ballot trafficking, ballot harvesting, Obviously, what we now know, universal mail-in balloting, which is how explains he got 81 million votes. Notice, there are millions and millions and millions of votes that are missing in the 2024 election compared to the 2020 election. Nobody wants to even talk about that. And the reason is obvious. Because they cheated in 2020. And to me, if you really want to know the truth, January 6th will live on in infamy. But not in the way the media yesterday and for the last God knows how many years, or the way the Democrats, or the way Hollywood and so many others are trying to portray it. The murder of Ashley Babbitt was, to me, utterly unforgivable. Michael Byrd must pay for the cold-blooded murder of Ashley Babbitt. The vicious murder and beating death of Roseanne Boylan on the steps of the Capitol. Those four, there were four in all, that were murdered on that fateful day. All of them Trump supporters. All of them unarmed. All of them innocent. To me, that is the infamy of January 6th. And I hope not only that Trump, when he becomes president, when he's officially sworn in less than 2 weeks now, not only I hope that he starts issuing pardons, massive pardons, to all the J6ers with financial compensation, but I hope that he demands that there be an investigation into the murders of Ashley Babbitt and Roseanne Boylan and all the others, and that people like Byrd be sent to jail for what he did. And so, let me ask all of you, 617-266-6868. I want to take calls right after the break. How do you compare this January 6th to the January 6th of 4 years ago? And are you now confident that Trump will be inaugurated now that the Democrats' threats to block his certification prove to be a bluff? And are the liberals and the Democrats right? Will January 6th haunt Trump for the next 4 years? And will it go down in history as one of the most darkest moments in America, right up there with Pearl Harbor, 9/11, and according now to Sonny Hostin and many others, slavery and the Holocaust itself? I say liberals are insane, but that's me. What say you? 6:30 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Many of you are texting the Kuhner man. 70470. This is from 617. Jeff, how many bottles of wine do you think Kamala had to get through just to go out there and certify that election yesterday? This is from Larry on Messenger. Jeff, you know what's hysterical about all this? If the Democrats didn't cheat and get the potato elected, Trump would have been hampered by Congress for the last 4 years, and he'd be leaving office in less than 2 weeks. Now he's got 4 years with much stronger people around him. Bingo. Bingo. The whole thing has now boomeranged against him. Everything. This is from Marianne. Jeff, I wonder how drunk Kamala got after the certification. Hell, she was probably drunk prior in order to get through it. God is good. And then Marianne also made the point that, Jeff, you want to know how good God is? The snow in D.C. was so bad that the protesters couldn't come out, so we didn't have to deal with all that BS. Well, that's the other thing. I mean, to me, that's the hilarious part. They're going Hitler, fascism, end of America, end of democracy. They're working themselves up into a lather. And you're going to let snow stop you from preventing Hitler? I mean, how pathetic can you guys be? I mean, if you really believe this guy was Hitler, a dictator, a fascist, a demagogue, KKK, white supremacist, I could go on and on. It's the end of America. We going to let a little snowstorm stop you? What is anyway? A little cold, What is it? What was it, like maybe 15, 20 degrees in Washington? So it was a little cold, a little snow, and suddenly, no, you guys all stay home? You phonies, you frauds, you. So let me ask all of you, now that the certification has taken place, there's nothing they can do. Trump will be the next president of the United States. The inauguration will take place on January 20th. I'm just curious, will this myth, and it is a myth, of January 6th being this, coup on the country, this assault on democracy, one of the darkest chapters in American history, will this narrative linger? Will it live on? Or do you think what we heard yesterday was the last gasp of a desperate, pathetic swamp and establishment trying to continue to peddle lies about January 6th that most Americans have seen through and now want to turn the page on? Will January 6th haunt President Trump into his second term? Or like me, do you believe it got consigned and buried into the dustbin of history when Trump won in November? 617-266-6868 is the number. The American people rendered their verdict. And their verdict was that January 6th for them meant ultimately nothing. It was not the tragedy that the Dems and the media tried to make it out to be. And I won't forget Bill in Sudbury, who called a couple weeks ago, and I haven't heard from him since, but let that go. When he said January 6th will be the reason why Trump will lose to Kamala Harris. And he will lose to Kamala Harris, guaranteed, 100% to zero. Many Democrats were peddling that line, that the American people will rise up in righteous anger against Trump for the breach of the Capitol and for January 6th, and that they will then permanently prevent him from ever becoming president again. And instead, to their shock, the country saw what happened on January 6th. They heard their arguments for 4 years. And they said, you know what? Much ado about nothing. With the obvious exceptions of Ashley Babbitt, Roseanne Boyland, and the others that were murdered on that fateful day. And by the way, the media, and I noticed this all day yesterday, continued to peddle the lies that, and Merrick Garland repeated that lie, that police officers were killed that day. No police officer died on January 6th. That is an absolute lie. No January 6th protester had a gun. Every single one of them were completely unarmed, unless you count the flagpole. So, I want to ask the libs out there, in all seriousness, how the hell could several thousand protesters, unarmed, with a flagpole, seek to overthrow the United States government? Wee you. 617-266-6868. January 6th is over. The narrative is over. And I hope that Trump, day one, comes in and pardons, if not all, almost all of the J6ers who are rotting in a gulag today. Agree, disagree? 617-266-6868 is the number. Mike, who do you want me to go to first? Russ in Boston. You're going to kick us off, Russ. Thanks for holding, and as always, welcome.
Good morning, Kuhner country. Our
Russ.
national nightmare is almost over. Goodbye, Joe Mamarook and his sidekick, Monica Lewinsky's mentor. That's what she is, Monica Lewinsky's mentor. Okay? Unbelievable, Jeff, I'm telling you. First of all, Jeff, I want to say I'm sorry to hear about your dad. You brought great joy and pride to your dad. He got to see what you have accomplished was made possible by his sacrifices. For a loving parent, life does not get any better than that. And Jeff, the great gift both of us got from our parents is the gift of faith. And we do walk by faith and not by sight. Our political savior has risen again. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. And do I hear an amen?
Amen. Amen. And Russ, I want to thank you for your warm words, your condolences to everybody in Kuhner country, the overwhelming sympathy that I've received on the news of my dad. I can't thank all of you enough. Russ, look, yesterday was a great day. January 20th is going to be an even greater day. I got to ask you, Russ, the Democrats, the liberals, the media, they won't let go of January 6th. Even though it's cost them everything. It was one of the key reasons why they lost the election. They kept obsessing over J6. Trump was hammering them on inflation, the border, crime, and in the end, they lost the House, they lost the Senate, they lost the White House, the presidency. They don't have the Supreme Court. It costs them everything. But they just, it's like whiskey to an alcoholic. They know it's bad, but they just can't help themselves. Russ, do you think now that our January 6th happened yesterday, Trump has now been certified, do you think they're going to be able to let it go? Or do you think they're going to continue to try to use it to hurt, cripple, and undermine Trump?
Jeff, they overplayed a bad hand, okay? And to think how ignorant that they were to refer to Donald Trump as Adolf Hitler. Okay, for all Jews, to me, that's the most insulting thing that you can call Donald Trump. Is someone equivalent to someone that made the death of 6 million Jews. Okay, so they overplayed their hand. And Jeff, believe me, you don't know what pleasure it is for me, because I've hated the media from what they did to us in Vietnam. And finally, they've gotten theirs, and they have no more relevance anymore. They're in the dustbins of history, and they will never get back to the power that they had. And Jeff, to me, that's the greatest thing of all that has happened here. And yes, it's a new day in America under Donald Trump. But unfortunately, I have to say this, as I said before, political ignorance will retain itself here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Just to think that if it was for the people of Massachusetts, Kamala Harris would become the President of the United States. Sure. And what a disaster.
Russ, as always, well said, and thank you for your call. 617-266-6868 is the number. I agree with them on every single point. Look, I think what the media does, and again, I just couldn't believe it yesterday. He's right. They not only overplayed their bad hand, but they don't realize how discredited they've now become. They have been, politically, morally, intellectually, nobody believes the media. Because, again, they got caught lying about January 6th. And, again, the most damning footage of January 6th is the one that Tucker released, which is, I think, ultimately why they pushed him out of Fox. Which is when you see the J6 protesters roaming the halls of Congress peacefully, taking selfies with the cops, shaking their hands, Really, I mean, like slapping them on the back. It's like a guided tour of the Capitol. And you're like, this is your insurrection? Are you serious? It's over. The Democrats and the media lost. Trump won. Agree, disagree. I love that song, Mike. It does. It feels very good. Very good. 650 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Trump certified yesterday. Kamala was the one who had to do it. And they got hoisted on their own petard, as they say. They passed these laws. The Electoral Count Act was the big one while Biden was in office. So you could never have a vice president potentially challenge an election, send a slate of delegates, of electors back to the states. Now the vice president, purely ceremonial, can only rubber stamp the Electoral College. So the Democrats boxed themselves in. Even if they wanted to challenge Trump yesterday for the certification, they couldn't. They had to certify it whether they liked it or not. And that's what Kamala did. And when you looked at her face, she wanted to be anywhere but there. Now, all Trump's got to do is survive the next less than 2 weeks, and he will be the next president of the United States. And my friends, we're going to start to take our country back. 617-266-6868. Lines are jammed. Angelo in Rockland. Thanks for holding, Angelo, and welcome.
Happy New Year, Jeff, and my condolences. Your father should be very proud of you, and I'm sure he is.
Thank you. Thank you, Angelo.
Yes,
Happy New Year. All the best to you and your family, Angelo.
Thank you very much. So the DDFS, Democratic Dead Fly Society, failed again. Every avenue they've taken has led them to emptiness and wrong moral doings. So look at this. The only tree they can try to go up right now is the January 6th tree, and if we investigate it, they'll come out looking like fools again. I wouldn't even waste the time. The time I'd waste my time on is the people who are chanting in the streets, "Death to America." They need to be dealt with. Maybe deport them before you deport the illegals. I think they're more of a threat personally. But it's a real sad day when you have people that are ISIS chanting "Death to America" on America's streets, and there are mortal enemies over there in the Middle East. Can't have that. I think I wanted to bring that up because that's not being talked of with all this beautiful things of Trump going on. And thank God he made it, because in a time of need, this is the time of need, not only for the United States, but for the world. And I just want to say Happy New Year. Sorry for your loss, and that's all I really have to say, Jeff.
Thank you, Angelo. Thank you very much. And again, Happy New Year to you, to your whole family. And look, you hit the nail right on the head. This is going to be Trump's year. I think 2025, we're now living in the Trump era. This is going to be Trump's year. I think his first year is going to be pivotal. I think the first 100 days are going to be pivotal. Already now, if you heard the big news, but he and the Republicans now are already putting together, as Trump put it, one big, beautiful bill where essentially he wants to solve so many of our problems in one massive bill and get it passed in the House, get it passed in the Senate. He'll sign it, and we're going to get the economy booming again. We're going to become energy dominant again. We're going to secure the border. We're going to start mass deportations, and you're dead on. We're going to start hammering these terrorist cells that infiltrated our country. And look, I talked about this yesterday, but it bears repeating. I mean, there's something seriously wrong at the FBI. And and forget the FBI, in the media, among the Democrats, in the liberal consciousness. You have an ISIS terrorist, an Islamic terrorist, who's cutting video after video after video, bragging how he wants to chop the heads off of Americans, and then follows through by taking a pickup truck and mowing down 14 Americans, killing them, in pedestrians, just for the sin of celebrating New Year's. And they're still going on about January 6th? Where, again, not to beat a dead horse, but it bears repeating. 4 people were killed on that day. All 4 were Trump supporters, unarmed Trump supporters, innocent Trump supporters. Ashley Babbitt being the most well-known. And you're going on to me about January 6th? There's something wrong in the head with these people. Seriously. They thought they could use this January 6th as a club, as a bludgeon, to beat Trump over the head and to beat him politically into submission. And instead, the American people looked at it and they said, you're lying. Everything what you're saying about J6 is a lie. The biggest lie being that this thing was the worst event that ever happened in America since the Civil War. If you believe that, and this is what the Democrats repeated again and again and again ad nauseum, then I'm sorry, there's something seriously wrong with you in the head. Liz Cheney has a screw loose. Jamie Raskin has a screw loose. Nancy Pelosi has a screw loose. Joe Biden, well, I mean, he's got nothing. There's nothing up there, so there's no screw to be loose. My point being, all of these Democrats that go on in the bills in Sudbury and others about January 6th, it's a stain on our nation. Now they're comparing it to the Holocaust. I mean, this is gross. Really, it's gross. So either they're that stupid and ignorant, or they're that unhinged. Now, I'm telling you, if we're gonna have this for 4 years under Trump, get ready for President J.D. Vance. This lunacy and insanity is just setting up now, I believe, 12 years of MAGA rule. Not 4, 12. 4 of Trump, and then 8 of his successor, J.D. Vance. So you guys want to keep talking to all the moonbats out there. You want to keep talking January 6th. Be my guest. No, really, be my guest. Because the next election will be even worse for you than this election. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Mike, the maestro conductor, where do I go to next, Mike? Stephen in the Golden State, California. Thanks for holding, Stephen, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Happy New Year, and thank you for all you do.
Oh,
Jeff,
thank you, Stephen.
The papers again. You're right on about this January 6th not going down in history as the Democrats would like it to. It's been driving me crazy for 4 years now, and I think someone should step up. I get disheartened and a little sad, and I'm mad even, wondering why I have not heard one word about what was the plausible motive. What was the plausible motive? What was going on at that time? I'll tell you what was going on at that time. Matt Gaetz was on fire, spelling out how they stole the election. Motive, stop the election fraud hearings, period. Motive, means, and method. Every good crime show has it. The first thing they go after is the motive. But nobody seems to be interested in the motive. And let me tell you, the motive was not a bunch of angry clowns turning into clowns, angry people about the election fraud, turning into clowns, unarmed, trying to overthrow the government. That wasn't the motive. The motive is so simple. Why hasn't Marjorie? Why hasn't Matt Gaetz? Why hasn't Stephen Bannon? Why haven't these people, Jim Jordan, come up and said, listen, motive, stop election fraud hearings, means Nancy Pelosi disregard all of Donald Trump's attempts to offer the National Guard, among other things. I mean, you are right on. It's not going to go down in history the way they hope. What do you think?
Well, look, I agree. And Stephen, look, I know Trump's got a full plate, okay? And look, I don't want to look back. I mean, how do I say this? I do want to look back because I want things to be exposed so we can fix our country. But look, I'm not a stupid man, and neither is Trump. We understand there's a border invasion. The standard of living has really declined under Biden. Inflation is killing working middle class Americans. So I understand he's got to get oil and gas prices down. He's got to get inflation down. He's got to go after the FBI, the swamp, the deep state. He's got to secure the border. He's got to start deportations. He's got a huge war to wind down in Ukraine and Russia. I mean, the guy's got, he's going to have to fight on multiple fronts. So I understand there are many serious problems he's got to deal with now. What I would like to see happen is I want to see a full accounting of the election of 2020, a true independent investigation. And I think there's no question that it will uncover massive electoral voting fraud. There's no question. That's why those protesters were there on January 6th. Now, as to January 6th, we've covered this ground many times. I don't want to repeat myself, but this needs to be said. Someone from inside the Capitol, this is not a conspiracy theory, this is a fact, opened those giant doors to let the protesters in. Had the doors not been opened, nobody would have been able to get into the Capitol, hence no January 6th. Who opened those doors? For 4 years now, they haven't told us. And who gave the order to open those doors? Because that will show that they wanted the people to come in. They wanted the protesters to come in. Which then you have to ask, que bono, who benefits? Why? Why would they want these people to come in? Why? Why were the police pulling back the barricades? Why were they inviting people in? Why? And I think the reason, as you put it, is obvious. Because the one person who didn't want a January 6th was Donald J. Trump. Because they were getting ready, one after another. Ted Cruz had one state. Josh Hawley had another state. Marsha Blackburn had the other state. The 4 contested states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania. And they were going to go on the Senate floor and present to the American people, with the whole world watching, cameras, why there was so much rampant corruption and irregularities, and why it should be sent back to those state legislatures to then look at what happened and maybe send a alternative slate of electors and delegates. And so they couldn't have the proceeding take place. They needed an incident. That's why they opened that door. That's why they waved them in. Now, Liz Cheney knows this. Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi know this. The J6 committee knows this. That's why they destroyed so much evidence. This is, again, irrefutable. And the evidence that they destroyed was people telling them again and again and again that these J6 protesters posed no threat. In fact, many of them were old ladies, literally old ladies, who are like, I can go in? Really? And you see them taking selfies with Capitol Hill police, and they're in for a couple of minutes and then they leave. Or you see them wandering the halls of Congress, again, shaking the hands of police, taking pictures. It was almost like a guided tour. Now, all of this was revealed to the J6 committee, but they didn't want the American people to know the truth. It was a show trial, like under Stalin. They only wanted to feed the Bills in Sudbury this propaganda that these people were storming the Capitol to institute a coup. Okay, a coup against what? The U.S. military? The entire Pentagon? The entire Congress? The entire government? What, 1,000, 2,000 people with one flagpole? are going to take over the entire American government. The whole theory is insane. It's insane. And then they conveniently leave out, as the committee did, how many times Donald Trump said, please stop. No, don't attack police officers. I don't want you fighting with police officers. Go home. Everybody go home. He said it again and again and again. But Facebook blocked him. At the time, pre-Elon Musk, Twitter blocked him. So you're trying to paint this guy as the mastermind of a non-coup, of a non-insurrection. That wasn't an insurrection. That was a non-insurrection. Because they had to cover up the fact that they stole the election in 2020 and they installed a buffoon, a puppet. And look at the damage that he's done. I mean, I got stories. He's just banned now. I'm going to get to this a little bit later, either today. If not, I'll definitely get to it tomorrow. He just signed he just performed another executive action. Trump actually found out about it yesterday while he was doing a radio interview. Joe Biden invoked the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act, 1953. He had to go back 70 years. He's now permanently banned all future oil and natural gas drilling along the entire Atlantic coast, the entire West Coast, the eastern half of the Gulf of Mexico, and all the way up the North Bering Sea in Alaska. 625 million acres. He's now banned us, or the next Trump, the Trump government, the successor, the next administration, from being able to explore and develop oil and natural gas. They're directly trying to sabotage Trump and his agenda to make us energy dominant. This is the kind of destructive puppet they installed, who's done nothing but wage war on the American middle class, on our energy independence, on our standard of living, on our military, on our border, on our national sovereignty, and on world peace. And that's why he and Kamala got their clocks cleaned. They got destroyed in November. And they're going on about January 6th. To me, let them keep going on. But I want the truth of January 6th to come out. January 6th was an inside job where they allowed these protesters, encouraged them to go into the Capitol to prevent all of the election fraud from being publicly unmasked and exposed. I want 2020 to be exposed for what it was, a stolen election. And every J6er that is rotting in jail or was rotting in jail should have a pardon, and they should get financial compensation for all the damage that was done to them. So I think Trump has a golden opportunity, once in 100 years, not just to fix the problems of our country for a generation, but to really unmask how corrupt our elites are and the links they went to undermine him, to frame him, to destroy him. And remember, they were out to destroy us. The whole purpose of January 6th wasn't just to cover up the fraud. It was to libel us and smear us, label us as terrorists. And that's what they tried for 4 years under Biden. Never forget that. We were insurrectionists. They wanted to delegitimize all opposition to the regime. And January 6th, they believe, was going to be their pretext. We have to expose everything for what it is. That's why now they know they can't stop him. He's marching back to Washington, D.C. And in less than 2 weeks, we now are back in the White House. And the Democrats and the liberals and the deep state need to pay and pay like they've never paid for anything in their life, because this must not be allowed to happen again. Stephen, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Mike, Rob in Maryland. Thanks for holding, Rob, and welcome.
Jeff.
Rob, what are you doing in Maryland, Rob?
Revisiting January 6th. I did some work down here up to 2022 and retraced the steps of what I saw. And I can only tell you that, first of all, Happy New Year, Jeff. And
Happy New Year.
So, as I explained to people what actually was going on there, they all of them that I spoke to, there's only 4 or 5, because after a while it was just a waste of time. Because, Alexandria and where I was staying and D.C. are all blue. Huge, I said, and they all would say, I didn't know that. So I went to this exact same spot. I was at Constitution and 2nd Ave by the Department of Labor, Jeff. And I think you know the areas that well. But when you got down there, the first thing you notice is an 8-foot high fence around 4 blocks around the Capitol. And you had every type of police officer there was. I walked the whole perimeter looking for a story. I only ran into a couple people that were whining and complaining with their signs like, Democrats follow the Constitution with the 14th Amendment. I had explained to them that the word insurrection was never defined, and Congress has to do that, but they didn't get that. They got really loud, and they got really ugly. But there was no one down there. There was nobody there.
Well, hold on. I don't understand something here, Rob. I mean, they're certifying Hitler. It's the end of our democracy, Rob. It's the end of the country. You mean to tell me some cold weather and a snowstorm and they didn't show up? Nobody was down there to protest and to block him like they were vowing to do for months and months and months? Rob, I'm shocked. I can't believe this. Rob, thank you for that call, and Happy New Year once again. January 6th, will the narrative live on, or will it die with Trump's victory? 7:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go to, oh my God, like Lazarus resurrecting from the dead. Bill in Sudbury is back. Bill, thanks for holding. Happy New Year and welcome.
Hello, good morning. Happy New Year to you too, Jeff. Okay, so are you ready to talk about between 1 and 4 on January 6th? Are you ready to address that he didn't do anything to help anybody? He watched it on TV and then lied about it?
You're talking about 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Is that it on January 6th?
Exactly. His actions on that during that time. Let's talk about that. I want to hear you defend that. Why did he first say, I didn't even know it was happening? Why did he lie about it the next day? Why did he say, I didn't even know the attack was happening? I was busy doing president stuff. And then the tape comes out of him watching it on TV, having a party. And like he was off, he didn't call anybody. He didn't make any attempt to do anything to defend the Constitution, to uphold his oath.
Well, Bill, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're completely right, Sandy. Number one, Bill, I can point to the tweets that he issued between 1 and 4 o'clock saying stop, go back, leave, go home, stop what you're doing. Twitter blocked the tweets. So that's number one. Number two, the videos. He did actually multiple videos and where he directly said, I don't want you to fight with any Capitol Hill police officer. I want you to leave the Capitol building. I want you to go home. I want you to stop. That was also blocked by Facebook. So I can show to you multiple occasions where he actually said, stop. I don't want you doing this. I want you to go home. As he said, you're hurting me. You're hurting our cause. You're not helping us by doing this. So this notion that he just sat there for 3 hours and did nothing is false. It's a lie. And Liz Cheney knows it, and the January 6th committee knows it. And he issued multiple statements between 1 and 4, both tweets, statements, official statements from the White House, and videos. But furthermore, and I think, Bill, this is the part that you're deliberately omitting. At that point, and despite everything that Trump had said, urging people to leave, what could Trump have done? He's not in charge of the National Guard. That was Nancy Pelosi. That was Muriel Bowser. That was General Mark Milley. Milley refused to call in the National Guard. I'm not talking about days before when Trump asked for 10 to 20,000 troops. I'm talking about when this thing was happening. Pelosi could have called in the National Guard. She didn't. Milley could have called in the National Guard. He didn't. Bowser could have called in the National Guard. She didn't. So at this point, Trump has absolutely no authority whatsoever to do anything. And what he did do, he said again and again and again, stop, go home. So I don't know what else you want the guy to do, Bill. You keep acting like somehow this is a smoking gun. There's no smoking gun. And to the final point, that you're going to compare January 6th to Pearl Harbor, to the Holocaust, to slavery, to 9/11. You're crazy. With all due respect, you're insane. You're absolutely insane. And what I find incredible, Bill, and I'm going to give you the last word, what I find incredible is that even after January 6th has cost you everything, because it was, people like you were calling the show saying Americans are so disgusted by January 6th, so revolted that they are going to vote Kamala Harris over Trump. Trump will never win. 100% guarantee he will never win because of January 6th. And I kept telling you, inflation, the border, crime, wars, the economic decline under Biden. This is what people cared about. This is what they're going to vote on. You're still pushing the J6 narrative.
J6 story harder than Mr. Trump himself. This is his highest priority. Look, we're talking about it today. He wants to go back and get even and change the story. Everybody watched it on TV. He'll never change the story, Jeff. And it's pathetic that you.
What story? He hasn't said a word.
States is so powerless that the only way he would respond is by tweeting. This is the limit of his power to tweet. He says
well, it's the Constitution,
tweet, so
Bill.
Okay?
Well, Bill, that's what I'm saying. You don't understand the Constitution. He's not a dictator. See, he's not a Democrat. He doesn't do things dictatorially. So, number one, first you came in and saying he did nothing. Then you say, well, okay, he was telling everybody to leave, but he should have done something. And I'm telling you, he has no authority over the National Guard. That was Pelosi's prerogative. If January 6th bothers you so much, how come you never blame Pelosi for what happened? She's the one responsible. Or Milley, or Bowser. And then you're going on about, he won't let it go. Trump said nothing about January 6th. It was the Democrats who's talked about January 6th. It was the media that keeps talking about January 6th. The only one that's obsessed about January 6th, Bill, is you. 7:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Trump's election officially certified yesterday by none other, than Kamala. Kamala Harris had to read out the electoral vote count state by state by state. And I got to tell you, it was a beautiful thing to watch. I mean, she looked at me a little, drinky, drinky, drinky. She looked at me like she was a little, a couple sheets to the wind, as they say. But Democrats, absolutely miserable. Republicans, triumphant. By the way, many of you are reacting to my exchange with Bill in Sudbury. And this is what Larry messaged me on Messenger. Jeff... Jeff, Bill is the poster child for don't smoke crack. I mean, the way they just obsessed with January 6th, they won't let it go. And even when you tell them, it's cost you everything. Can't you see that? You know, it's like again, like crack. The drugs, they've cost you everything. And it's like, I want to inhale it one more time. Let me smoke it one more time. What? Yeah, man. Yeah, that's good stuff, man. Oh, Trump, he's bad, man. January 6th, man. I mean, really, honestly, if this is an indication of the liberal Democrat opposition, how progressives are going to react to Trump over the next 4 years, believe me, I think he and J.D. Vance are going to set in place a majority coalition that is going to last for a long time to come. Because really, they do sound crazy. At this point, they can't let J6 go. Now, I want to ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Is Kamala Harris's certification of Trump's election victory her greatest achievement? Of everything she's done in her life, of everything she's done as senator, as vice president, everything is certifying, in other words, rubber stamping Trump's victory yesterday. Is this the greatest achievement of Kamala Harris's life? A, yes. B, no. I'm a yes all the way. The greatest thing she's ever done is to go, yep, he won. Yep, let me stamp it. Okay, he's now certified. He's now the president. I think without the shadow of a doubt, this is the only positive thing this woman has ever done was yesterday. Agree, disagree, you can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. You can also vote on X. I was active on X, but I'm up here in Montreal, so taking care of my dad after his wake and funeral. But I will be back active in the next day or two. My handle on X, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, KUHN is in national ER. Is this her greatest achievement? I'm going to go even further. Not only is this her greatest achievement, I think this is going to be the greatest achievement of her entire life. I don't care what she does for the rest of her life. Now, she was forced, her hands were tied, because the Democrats passed a law that said you couldn't challenge the certification of a presidential election. So they backed themselves into a corner. So their entire anti-Trump lawfare and warfare has now backfired and blown up in their face. But still, she did it. I mean, she did rubber stamp it. 617-266-6868 is the number. This is from Mark on Messenger. Jeff, will the Trump administration hold the mainstream media accountable for pushing all the propaganda and lies and fake news, not just about January 6th, but about everything? Because I think they should. What say you? I agree. I think there's no question. I think on day one, Trump has to come out and say, you claimed this about January 6th, you lied. You claimed this about the 2020 election, you lied. You claimed this about the Russia collusion hoax, you lied. You claimed this about the Hunter Biden laptop, you lied. The big one, you claimed that I was a threat to democracy, you lied. I mean, just no mercy. Absolutely no mercy whatsoever. You can't stop pounding them, hammering them, exposing them enough. Because all you get now from them is a daily diet of lies, misinformation, and propaganda. Agree, disagree, 617 266-6868. Mike, who's up next on the board? Lorenzo, I love that name. Lorenzo in Boston. Thanks for holding, Lorenzo, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Sorry about your dad. God bless you. Grace the kids and your sister.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lorenzo.
Hey, I'm calling today because I love the topic. You and Matt Boyle are the only ones that have talked about this election rigging, and you more than anybody. You have the guts. I know that they want to fine you and they want to stop you from talking about. But I got to say, thank you for talking about it and helping Trump expose it. Now, I think we know Mike Pence was involved in it, because he's part of the SOAR. I've heard Peter Navarro talk. I've heard General Flynn talk, and they don't trust this Mark Meadows guy. They never trusted him, so there were so many people, helping to rig this election. Without people like you, I don't know if we're ever going to get people to be held accountable, but we can sure, stop it from the next time with a platform like you. And, one other thing, Jeff, Sean Hannity, I'm so disappointed in him because Trump has been so loyal to him. He's such a rat to me now, being a media sore creature, because he's supposed to be Jeff's friend. Trump's friend. And he, with his show, with his radio show and TV show, he could help expose it. And he's done nothing, Jeff. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Lorenzo, thank you very much. And I want to wish you and your family a very happy, healthy new year. I've never met Sean Hannity. I have nothing personally against the guy. I'm just calling it the way I see it. The reason why he will not expose the election fraud that took place in 2020, the stolen election, was because if he even tries to go there, look what they did to Tucker Carlson. And Tucker Carlson didn't even go very much on the election. He just tried to expose a little bit of what happened on January 6th, the real story. And he wasn't, remember, he shows the January 6th footage and then, does his show. And then that was a Friday. And by Monday, he wasn't even back on the air. And you asked him, well, what did he do wrong? Was there anything in the footage that Tucker showed that was wrong, false, misleading? No. So you're going to fire the guy or basically push him out because he told the truth? And they would never allow him to get back on the air. That's why Sean Hannity won't touch election fraud or voting fraud or the stolen 2020 election, because he's out on his rear end. That's why, look, to me, the allure of corporate media is that they pay you $15, $20, $25 million. And I read this article, a couple of weeks ago. He has this mega mansion in Florida. It pays very, very well. He's got, it's almost obscene, frankly. But anyway, it's his money. He can do whatever he wants with it. But he's got this massive, massive, massive mansion in Florida. So, if you're a shill for the corporate media, it pays. But I have to look at myself in the mirror. My father was not a shill for anyone. My father was his own man. My grandfather was his own man. And as I said at my dad's eulogy, I am his son and I am his grandson. And he taught me that in this world, the most important thing is you have to look at yourself in the mirror every day and be proud of what you see. So I could never sell my soul. Knowing things, I'm sure Sean Hannity, knowing that the election was stolen, knowing that our voting system is incredibly corrupt, but because I want to keep taking this paycheck, I'm censoring myself, I'm keeping myself deliberately silent. I couldn't do that. And there's got to be a point. How much is enough? I know you want to take care of your family, but when you've made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, Start your own podcast. Start your own platform. Tell the truth, for God's sakes. I mean, you don't need the money. You've got enough money to take care of generations of your family. So, I'm sorry. I refuse to sell my soul. That's why I don't do corporate media. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
This is a little hard for me, Jeff, because it brings up both feelings. Jeff, my heart goes out to you and your family.
Thank you.
Truly know how your entire family feels. So I know your history, your family, what they've been through, Jeff, and I swear I'm going to fight with you. I'm going to fight even harder in dedication of your father or your father. That being said, Jeff, it's very simple. Prior to the November 3rd, 2020 fraudulent election, Marxist Communist Democrats used the virus to inflame fear. Then the Democrats went to the courts and judges to change election laws, universal mail-in voting and early voting, which is illegal. And it made it a fraudulent election prior to the November 3rd, 2020 election because they violated state constitutional voting laws on the books and separation of powers. Judges are supposed to rule on laws, not make or change laws, and only the state legislators can change election laws after putting it on the ballot and getting the two-thirds majority vote from we the people, empowering state legislators to change the election laws. There was a court case that would have helped Trump, Jeff, on June 27th, 2023, that came out at the Supreme Court. And it was Moore versus Harper, which set a precedent that would have helped President Trump on how illegal elections failed to follow constitutional state voting laws. This helped her overturn the Louisiana election, Georgia election, and Connecticut after 2023, June of 2023. We have to help Trump clean these elections, and especially in all the states. This is a state-country problem, especially the swing states. We can look back at they admitted this stuff, Jeff. Even corrupt Joe Biden, October 2020, this is his words. We are in a situation where we have put together, and you guys did it for President Obama administration before this, we have put together, I think, the most extensive, inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. Joe Biden's words.
You nailed it. Dan, forgive me. Dan, you absolutely nailed it. Everything you said is 1,000% true. And he admitted it. They were bragging about it. But, Dan, we could go on and on. I mean, that's what I mean. The evidence is it's a mountain of evidence. It's irrefutable. Since they like to invoke the Holocaust over and over and over again. Sunny Hostin now, that clown, she's going on about how January 6th is right up there with the Holocaust. It's like proving the Holocaust. There's just so much evidence. I mean, really, it's just like after a while, the evidence is overwhelming. So Time magazine, a left-wing liberal anti-Trump publication, published a massive piece. I remember I read from it quite extensively on the air after the 2020 election, in which they openly bragged, the writer of the Time magazine article openly bragged. She called it her words, a conspiracy, saying that this was Facebook and Zuckerberg and then Dorsey, who was running Twitter, and the globalists, and they were in bed with the Democratic Party, and they were engaging in all of this disinformation and misinformation campaign to guarantee that Trump lose the election in 2020. That they did everything in their power. Remember all that dark money Zuckerberg was pouring into ballot trafficking, ballot harvesting, ballot collecting, these ballot collection boxes. where they were just stuffing them. You see people walking up with 200, 300, 400 ballots. They're just stuffing it in there. And they openly bragged, that's how we stole the election. That's how we took it from Trump. I mean, this is Time magazine. Like, who are we kidding? Now, my fear, and I can sense it in your voice as well, Dan, is that, you know, we made it too big to rig, as Trump said. And they were just so arrogant, so cocky, so incompetent, and so disastrous that they just couldn't rig this one. They did in some states, but they weren't able to steal it from Trump. I hope Trump understands that of everything he has to do, and he's got a lot of very important things to do, the most important, he's got to pass a national election integrity bill. He has to do it. You can't assume that just because we pulled off a miracle, and this was a miracle, in November 2024, that we'll just keep pulling off miracles every 2 years or every 4 years. Because the Democrats are going to be back. And they're going to be back worse and badder than ever. So they have to pass a national election integrity bill. No voting machines. Paper ballots. Number one. Number two, no mail ballots. None. Everybody votes in person. Voter ID across the board in every single state. And everybody votes on the same day with a few exceptions. This early voting, I've never seen this. People are voting a month before an election, 6 weeks before an election. They're still counting votes in California. I mean, it's a month after the election and they're still counting votes. This is ridiculous. So we have to have clean elections again. Honest elections again. Now, if the Democrats are the better party, what are they afraid of? If Trump is going to be this disaster as they claim, well, then it's all yours. You have nothing to fear from a free and fair election. But they don't want free and fair elections because they know if it's a free and fair election, in most cases, they will lose. I'll be brutally honest. I know people may think I'm crazy, Dan. By the way, New Hampshire to me is ground zero. The election corruption in New Hampshire, the reason why I believe it's worse than Massachusetts, it's because I think in Mass, the Dems could still win a free and fair election. Okay, that's how stupid they are in this state. In New Hampshire, no way. No way. No one's going to tell me Trump didn't win New Hampshire in 2016, in 2020, or in 2024. No way. No way. So it has a greater impact, this corrupt election system in New Hampshire, than it does in Mass. But even in Mass, and by the way, I think New York would go red. I think New Jersey would go red if we had a free and fair election system. Even Massachusetts, I'm not saying the Democrats would lose, because there's a lot of moonbats here. But it would become more of a purple state. You'd at least have Republicans winning some congressional seats, more representation in the state legislature, much more competitive at the governor's level. In other words, you take away election fraud and voter corruption, and the Dems have nothing. That's why they have to get more communist, more Marxist, more intolerant, and more authoritarian. They need a one-party state because they can't accept the verdict of the people. That's why, by the way, they're against free speech. They're petrified of any ideas that challenge their ideas because they can't win in an open marketplace of ideas. That's why they're anti-free speech. That's why they're anti-free enterprise. That's why they're anti-voter ID law. That's why they're anti-election integrity. That's why they want to keep perpetuating the myth of January 6th. Because they don't want to talk about the real underlying issue. Joe Biden stole the election. Full stop. And by the way, they stole 2022. Full stop. And the only way they didn't steal 2024 was because Trump and his team this time were ready. and we came out in such massive numbers. We swamped them at the polls. That's why yesterday's certification, that was our victory yesterday. It was a beautiful thing to watch. To have Kamala Harris eat crow like that and have to certify her own defeat and Trump's victory, good. Good. And now we've got a chance. Really, I think we have 2 years. I don't trust the Democrats in the midterms in 2026. That's why my advice to Trump is the next 2 years, think of them as your 4 years. Whatever you need or want to get done, get it done in your first 2 years. Like this is like a sprint. For 2 years, just go, go, go. Otherwise, the Democrats are going to block you. They're going to obstruct you. They're going to undermine you. And before you know it, you're looking at the midterms. They'll steal that, and then they're going to start to impeach you. So Trump's got to move, and he's got to move now. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. And as always, Dan, Happy New Year, and God bless you. Mike, Jimmy in Malden. All right, we'll go to Jimmy in Malden. Jimmy, thanks for holding, and welcome.
Jeff, thank you. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Welcome, Jimmy.
I just wanted to make the point. I don't think that the Democrats are raising a lot of fuss about Trump getting in now, and they're not rioting in the streets because they know what a mess they made this country. And I think they're leaving it to, I don't think we're going to know until Trump actually gets in how bad this country's economy is and how bad the situation is with the immigrants and everything else. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, Jimmy, look, let me just give you an example, okay? This just broke, but it fits in perfectly to what you're saying. Mark Zuckerberg, because he can see what's happening to the credibility of Facebook, has now come out and said they're getting rid of all fact checkers. He says, we had too many restrictions on free speech. We're getting killed by Elon Musk on X. The country now wants to end wokeism, DEI, these assaults on free speech, this push for censorship. The country has voted for Trump, and they've repudiated all of that. And so they want an end to this cultural leftism and this growing intolerance that we saw under Biden and under the Democrats. And so now, it just broke, Zuckerberg says no one's going to be in Facebook jail anymore. No one's going to have their posts taken down. No one's going to have these liberal fact checkers lie and claim something is like January 6th. That, for example, if someone says, no police officer ever died, and then claim it's disinformation when everybody knows it's true. So these ridiculous claims of disinformation by the left on things that are clearly true and provably true, that's going to stop on Facebook. Why? Because Zuckerberg now understands that the country has shifted dramatically to the right, that this is now Trump's America. And the majority, in fact, the overwhelming majority, are with Trump and with the America First movement on every single issue, beginning with freedom of speech. Now, this goes exactly to your point, Jimmy. The Democrats deep down, and you're right, I think that's why there's a passivity to them. They're passive in a way they're not usually this passive. Because let's be honest, every sane person knows the border is a disaster. Every sane person knows you can't allow 15 to 20 million illegals to pour in over 4 years. Even the Massachusetts moonbats know the emergency shelter system is filled. It's full. It's full. So people residents, taxpayers, citizens of Massachusetts now cannot get emergency shelter assistance. We have homelessness now everywhere in Massachusetts because we've given everything to the migrants. So our emergency shelter system is straining to the breaking point. Our welfare system is straining to the breaking point. Our healthcare system is straining to the breaking point. Our education, our schools are, you can't take in any more migrants. So they understand, Jimmy, that they've so mismanaged the country. Never mind inflation. Never mind these record deficits. Never mind the fact now that we're on the verge of World War III with Ukraine and Russia. Never mind now that Iran is seriously contemplating escalating a war with Israel, which could lead to an all-out war in the entire region. So the Democrats know that they have made a mess of historic proportions. Now, they're going to wait for Trump to clean it up, and then they're going to start calling him a racist or a fascist or xenophobic, but they realize they blew it. They know deep down Biden was the worst, most corrupt, criminal president in American history. Honestly, Jimmy, I've never seen anybody this incompetent. And what he's doing on his way out, the pardons, the commutations, murderers are getting pardoned, drug dealers are getting pardoned, child traffickers are getting pardoned. I can't, the people that he's pardoning, it's unconscionable. And now he's trying to tie Trump's hands by preventing him from drilling every offshore water all across the Atlantic coast, all across the West Coast, Jimmy, all the way in Alaska and the eastern Gulf of Mexico. 625 acres. And I'm talking, this is prime oil, natural gas development. He doesn't want Trump to succeed. He wants energy to be even more expensive. He wants us to pay more at the pump, more for heating, more for everything that we use for energy. I mean, this is what I'm saying. There's only so much you can take. And I think most Democrats realize they may not like Trump, they may not like his tweets, they may not like his style, they may not like his bravado, but deep down, they were much better off under Trump. Much better off. Look, I don't want to keep using the same example. Under Trump, $38, I filled up my car. Under Biden, $80. $80. Now that's double. My heating bill under Biden doubled. Everything under Biden went up minimum 30%, if not 50 to 100%. Now, I can sustain it for a couple years, but this can't go on indefinitely. Biden and the Democrats destroyed the middle class. And if Trump had not won in November, Jimmy, take it to the bank, they would have destroyed the American dream. And so, no, look, I don't want to mention any names, okay, but just to show you, this person was very big in radio. Now is retired, okay, but let me just say this, very big in radio. And I was having dinner a couple of weeks ago, okay, prominent executive at iHeart. We're just talking end of the year, you know, going over everything and very happy with the show, very happy with the ratings. And he said, you know, this former big-time radio host, now retired, huge lib, voted for Kamala, says he can't stand Trump. When this executive tweeted this former radio host and said, well, what do you think now of Trump's victory? You know what he responded? Quote, unquote, I'll take the money. Meaning, I didn't vote for him, but I know my life is going to be much better under Trump. I'll take the money. So there you go, Jimmy. Now, that's a Democrat, dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. His response was, I'll take the money. In other words, I'll take the peace and prosperity. So that's why I think you're seeing this lack of aggression, this lack of fierce, ferocious resistance, because deep down they know the problems that Biden imposed on this country, his disastrous policies, only Trump can fix. Final word to you, Jimmy.
You've pretty much summed up everything I had to say. I just think that this country's got a long road ahead of it as far as what we need to do. It's going to take decades to unravel the damage that Biden has done in this country. So I mirror everything that you say, and I'd also like to just quickly say I'm terribly sorry about your father. I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. Jimmy, God bless you and have a happy new year. 617-266-6868. Look, and that's another thing. I really want to urge everybody, please be a little patient with Trump. You know, it takes a while to turn things around. It's not going to be the first week or the first 2 weeks. I mean, I think everybody will feel the effect. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, Jimmy and Malden is right. If we're lucky, it'll take a generation to fix the damage the Democrats, Obama, and Biden has done. If we're lucky. And again, he's got to end that war between Russia and Ukraine. Because if that goes nuclear, that's what I mean. You don't recover from that. So there's some things he's got to do immediately. Immediately. What he's got to do is stop the hemorrhaging. Stop the hemorrhaging at the border. Stop the hemorrhaging with inflation. Stop the hemorrhaging with crime. Stop the hemorrhaging with Iran or with Russia and Ukraine. Stop the bleeding. You know, the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. First, do no harm. So he's got to do that. And then we're going to start to just keep building and building and building. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. Trump now officially certified. We did it, baby. There's nothing now the Democrats can do to block him. He will be the 47th president of the United States. Are we watching history in the making? And the Democrats are still clinging to this ridiculous January 6th narrative. Will it die on Trump's inauguration day? All of your calls next. 8:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is a really good text that I got. This is from 917. You can text us 70470, 70470. And this is referencing my debate with Bill from Sudbury about maybe 45 minutes ago, about January 6th. And 917 says, Jeff, your liberal caller, Bill from Sudbury, is the perfect example of so many people I know. They are so consumed with a raging hatred for President Trump. That is emotions, objective facts. That is reality. Doesn't matter. This psychological phenomenon becomes self-referential. Anything and everything magnifies the rage. Well, see, that's the point. They call in and they say, well, he did nothing between 1 and 4 o'clock on January 6, 2021. And you're like, well, no, he issued tweet after tweet. He delivered, produced a video and said, stop, leave, go home. What else could he do? He can't call in the National Guard. He doesn't have that power. If you remember, during all of the riots of 2020, when he saw Kenosha burning to the ground, Portland burning to the ground, when he saw riots breaking out in state after state, he kept urging governors, call in the National Guard. I don't have that power. You do. So when they breached the Capitol, if this was such a threat to democracy, as the Democrats claim, and if these members of Congress were so afraid for their lives, like, for example, AOC claims, even though she was in a completely different building, blocks away from the Capitol, but let that go. Well, then why didn't Pelosi call in the National Guard? She had the authority. Muriel Bowser had the authority. General Milley had the authority. Trump didn't have the authority. It doesn't matter. they still blame Trump. Like, it's just incredible. So, facts, objective reality means nothing. And notice, the more you refute them, the more angry they get. They hate him even more. Instead of saying, geez, maybe we're being a little unfair to the guy. I don't know, maybe we're being lied to and manipulated and misled. No. They get even angrier and angrier and angrier. Because ultimately, I think it's a cult. If you really want to know my honest opinion, the Democratic Party has become a modern-day cult. And their followers are like, what you consider like, religious fanatics of a cult. And they can't accept any challenge to their worldview. But now reality is starting to descend upon them. And, as I go back to my call with Jimmy, that I've been here in Canada now for, 7-8 days because of my dad's passing away. Privately, many liberals who hated Trump before are all telling me now, things are really bad. I hope he succeeds. So even here in Canada, and you want to talk about Trump derangement syndrome, this is the heartland of Trump derangement syndrome. And even they are saying that gas has to come down. Energy has to come down. Inflation has to come down. The cost of living has to come down. This is just unsustainable. So even now, many of them are privately hoping that Trump succeeds. 617-266-6868. Mark in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome. We lost Mark. Gary in the Freedom State, Florida. Thanks for holding, Gary, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. First of all, condolences on losing your father. I lost mine a year ago last January, a tremendous man of faith, and I miss him. I can empathize with you. I also want to maybe disagree with you a little bit about remembering January 6th as an insurrection. Any time that our seat of government, the perimeter of the seat of government is breached, it needs to be remembered so we can prevent it and not let it happen again. And we did have federal agents fatally shoot an American citizen. You touched on that, and that's, a very big thing to remember again so it doesn't happen again. But also, I think it needs to be remembered as an insurrection because it blocked the last chance to have a free and fair election. To bring the electors, the count up to Congress was the last chance we had for checks and balance for a free election. And that didn't happen. And, of course, the wrong president was installed, so I don't know what else you call it but an insurrection. And then the damage that has happened to the country since then. January 6th needs to be remembered as a horrible, horrible day, not the way Liz Cheney and
Gary, can you do me a favor? I'm up against a hard break. Please hang on. I want to take you on the other side. Gary is making a fascinating argument. He's saying it was an insurrection, but not in favor of Trump, against Trump. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 if you want to be part of the show. All right, let's go right back to Gary in Florida. He's got an absolutely fascinating, there's no other way to put it, really interesting argument saying that, no, Jeff, January 6th was an insurrection. January 6th was a very dark day in American history, but not for the reasons of Pelosi or Liz Cheney or the Democrats or the liberal media. It was, in fact, a very dark day against Donald Trump and against his supporters. Gary, please elaborate.
Well, you said it a little while ago, Jeff, when you mentioned quo bono. Who benefited from the insurrection or the events that happened that day? You can go back on the C-SPAN feed on YouTube and watch it. They were going to at least discuss the discrepancies of the election, and all that stopped because the Capitol was breached. And I think that's just what Pelosi and the others wanted. They didn't want Matt Gaetz and the others to show their evidence. And so when it all calmed down, I guess they all lost the spine and just wanted the day to end. And they just went through without doing any more of the objections. But they had already broken up that general session in where both houses meet, and both the House and the Senate were meeting separately to discuss it, which never, to my recollection, never happened in American history before. And then the Capitol was breached, and so it all stopped. So a lot of evidence didn't come out. The insurrection or those events on January 6th are just another in a long line of taking the election, starting way back from COVID and changing the election laws. And then even afterwards continue about lying about it. And the lawfare, particularly with Rudy Giuliani and what they're doing to him, it was all so Donald Trump couldn't stay in power. And again, they continued the lies so it would affect this election cycle. And so that's, I think, the key point in the whole process of trying to steal the election was last January 6th.
If you were advising Trump, Dave, what would you tell him to do? Should he launch an all-out investigation into January 6th? Should he have Kash Patel, who most likely is going to be the director of the FBI, or his attorney general, most likely Pam Bondi, launch an internal investigation and, ask basic questions as you're asking? Who gave the order to open the doors? Why was Pelosi so determined not to bring in the National Guard? Was this an inside job where they deliberately wanted people to breach the Capitol so they could then suspend the debate in the Senate about which, the stolen elections in the 4 critical states? In other words, should we have the Trump administration officially investigate what really happened on January 6th and have it all come out?
So, Jeff, I really do. I really do. A lot of us who follow this stuff, we know a lot of the stuff that's been going on. But again, the bill is in Sudbury. I don't know if you can change their mind because they're so blocked. But somehow, some way, the truth has to come out. And if I'm wrong on what I think is the truth, I'm fine with that. But let's get down and find the truth, because I don't think we know half of it. Even the way the January 6th committee was designed, people that the majority leader wanted on the committee were bumped off for anti-Trumpers. That just stinks.
Well, it's unconstitutional. I mean, that's the other thing. It was illegally, that whole committee was illegally put together from the and by the way, they also changed the composition of the committee. Normally committees are 13 people. They shrank it to 9. Like, in other words, they did things that literally were unconstitutional and illegal just to go after Trump. And then we find out, Dave, just to reinforce what you're saying, that they destroyed evidence that exculpated Trump. He was exonerated. They had evidence again and again and again that he gave the order for days before the request for 10 to 20,000 National Guard troops, that it was Pelosi who said no, that it was Milley who said no, that it was Bowser who said no, that Trump, in fact, repeatedly said, stop, go home, I don't need this, I don't want this. In other words, there was so much evidence there that showed beyond a shadow of a doubt that the last thing this was an insurrection in favor of Trump, and that the last thing it was a conspiracy orchestrated or masterminded by Trump. And yet, instead of exposing all of that, they literally hid it, and then when the committee ended, they destroyed the evidence. To me, that's why Liz Cheney needs to go to jail, among others. She perpetrated a massive fraud upon the American people. Dave, am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right, Jeff, and that's why we do need some type of other investigation, because we all thought it was important for the House committee to investigate it, but their investigation was a sham. Let's have a real one, and let's get down to the real truth.
Dave, as always, thank you very much for that call. 617, I couldn't have said it better myself. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right, who do you want me to go to next, Mike? Scott in Revere. Scott, Happy New Year to you and your family, my friend.
Jeff, I just want to say this shout out goes to Dad. I love you in a non-sexual way, man.
Thank you very much, Scott. Scott, buddy, what's on your mind?
I'm telling you right now, Jeff, you're exactly right. And the guy who you just had on, I forgot his name already. But
Dave.
He hit it out of the park.
Hello, Scott.
Because the last one was a sham. I mean, everything, if you take it step by step, it was all a lie, a big lie to steal enough. And it's that simple. I mean, it's real. You can make a case that was the whole reason for that.
Scott, you're breaking up on us. Let's see if we can reestablish a connection with Scott, Mike. No, look, but what I managed to get from you, Scott, was that the whole thing was a lie, step by step. It was. That, to me, is what's most shocking about this. Everything, I could go down, from A to Z. Everything they said about January 6th turned out to be a lie. That this was an insurrection against the government, a lie. That this was an attempt to overthrow our democracy, a lie. That this was somehow a coup on the part of Trump and his supporters. My God, what a lie. That this was somehow organized and planned by Trump ahead of time. A complete lie. That police officers were killed that day, a lie. That this was, and then going on, comparing it to World War II, comparing it to 9/11, comparing it to Pearl Harbor, comparing it to slavery, now to the Holocaust. I mean, this is outrageous. Honestly, it's insulting. Really, seriously. So everything that they said about that day turned out to be an absolute lie. In fact, if there was a conspiracy, and again, I keep going back to this fundamental fact, who gave the order for the Capitol Hill police to open up that massive Iron Dome door, which can only be opened from the inside? If that thing had been left closed, nobody could have breached the Capitol. Nobody. So they wanted them to enter the Capitol. We see the police officers waving people in. We see them pulling back the barricades. Now, this wasn't one or two. You can say, oh, they're Trump supporters, Jeff. No, it was almost all of the Capitol Police. So clearly there was an order from the top. Who gave the order? And who gave the order to the person who gave the order? In other words, did this come from Pelosi? Did this come from Mitch McConnell? Because remember, he also refused the 10,000 National Guard troops. Who gave the order? And then the person who ultimately benefited was Joe Biden, because that sealed his deal. The coup against Trump was fulfilled by what happened on January 6th. And remember, it came out, the FBI had assets. They had their operatives, their people embedded into the crowd. 4 of them that we know of breached the Capitol. And nothing ever happened to them. No one was punished. No one was charged. No one was sent to jail. Why is that? And why was the FBI infiltrating the crowd? And why were there people storming the Capitol? I think to create an incident. In other words, they wanted the Capitol breached. And by having by ensuing, creating chaos and anarchy and basically a mini riot to break out, because that prevented the case being made by the senators on the Senate floor about how they stole Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So literally, I think the story, they got it exactly backwards. This was an insurrection. This was a coup. This was an assault on our quote-unquote democracy, even though we're a constitutional republic, but let that go. But it came from within the deep state. It came from Pelosi. It came from the enemies of Trump. Okay, speaking of the enemies of Trump, I've got a story for you next. Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends, let me throw another log on the fire, as I like to say. So, now the liberals, their heads are exploding over what they say is definitive proof that Trump really is a fascist imperialist monster. And what is this smoking gun evidence that the Dems and the Moonbats and these, socialist progressives have now uncovered? Well, it looks like Donald Trump is very serious about purchasing Greenland. Now, if he pulls this off, this would be, I think, one of the most consequential achievements of any president in modern memory. So just for that people to understand what's going on, Greenland, massive territory between North America and Europe, closer to the Arctic Circle. It's basically cold, freezing cold, Arctic temperatures almost all year round. I believe they even have snow in June. I think July and August are the only 2 months where they have no snow. So, look, it's cold. Not only is it cold, it's sparsely inhabited and populated. Population is about 57,000 people, so it's barely the size of a small city in terms of population. It is a territory of the Kingdom of Denmark. Now, what is happening is that the people of Greenland, all 57,000 of them, are chafing under the control of the Danes. Many of them want to be independent or autonomous. Many of them no longer want to have this colonial tie to Denmark. They believe that Denmark is preventing them from trading with other countries like the United States or Canada or countries around the world, which would make them much more prosperous, bring in business investment. So they feel that this relationship with Denmark is seriously holding the entire island back. And it's a massive island. It is full of natural minerals. It may be very low in population, honestly, because it's so cold. It's very hard to live there. However, it is resource extremely rich. Very resource rich. Trump believes that Greenland's destiny is to become sort of what Alaska was for a while. Maybe not a state initially, but a territory that would become a state. But like Alaska, that this would be an incredibly important piece of real estate for the United States. And so he now says, as one of his key elements of his agenda, he wants now, because he fears that China or Russia will eventually gobble up Greenland, especially as more and more vast deposits of oil and natural gas are being found near the Arctic Circle. The Russians in particular are being very aggressive in that area. And so Trump is basically saying, I don't want Greenland to fall under China's influence or Russia's influence. Greenland is much closer to North America than it is to Europe. They don't like this domination or historic domination of Denmark over that territory. If they have a referendum, if they have a ballot initiative, they will vote to become independent. And then, like Texas, once they become independent, they will eventually vote to become part of the United States, especially if the United States can put a really nice monetary offer on the table. In other words, will buy you. And the money will stay in Greenland, obviously, which needs it to build more hospitals, to build schools, to build better roads, infrastructure, to deal with the harsh weather and the harsh terrain. But the point is, Trump is so determined that he's now sent his son, Don Jr., to visit Greenland and to do kind of like an initial inspection of the island. And to visit the island, to talk to people on the island, to travel the island, to check it out, and then come back to his father and really find out, in particular, popular sentiment. Are the people of Greenland, who basically speak Greenlandic, which is a kind of an Inuit, an indigenous language. There is a lot of Danish there as well, because it's a Danish territory. But are they in favor of being annexed or being bought by and becoming part of the United States? Listen now. This is a citizen of Greenland speaking to a filmmaker. And if this person's anything to go by, he says, we don't want to be colonized by the Danish government anymore. We want Trump to buy Greenland. We'd love to be a part of the United States. Roll cut 17, Mike.
Buy Greenland?
Buy Greenland.
Why do you want Trump to buy Greenland?
Because we don't want to be colonized by Danish government anymore. We get ripped every year about our minerals from Greenland. We are the richest nation in the world, and we don't get to use it. Denmark's using us too much.
Do you like America?
I love America, but people are too fat over there.
So, I mean, he speaks with a little bit of an accent, obviously, actually, but his English is actually quite good. Saying, look, we're one of the richest nations in the world when it comes to resources and minerals, and yet we're being pillaged by the Danish government. They take most of our resources, and they give us very little in return. And we'd love to be able to develop our full potential. And look, you know, Alaska was a territory, then became a state. Look how prosperous Alaska is. Hawaii was initially a territory, became a state. You have other, Guam is a territory. They're flourishing. The Virgin Islands, a territory. They're flourishing. Puerto Rico, a territory. Compared to the rest of the Caribbean, they're flourishing. So the people of Greenland, many of them anyway, are saying, why are we under the thumb of the Danes? Why this relationship with Denmark, which benefits us little, but benefits the mother country, Denmark, tremendously? No, colonization is over. We want to go our own way. And 56,000 people, you may be independent in theory, but you can't defend your island. And if Putin wants to make a move, or if the Chinese make a move, there's nothing an independent Greenland can do. That's why many people in Greenland are saying, we'd love to be a territory of the United States. Why? Because they'll let us develop our resources, our wealth, attract investment, and it'll all stay here in Greenland. So Trump believes that if he can get Greenland, he will secure American greatness for the rest of the 21st century. That he will have given us a vital strategic piece of real estate, not just in terms of its massive mineral and resource wealth, but also strategically between North America and Europe, higher in the Arctic Circle to deter the rise of Russia and China. He says, if we can acquire Greenland, it would vastly increase the national interest of the United States and the national security and strength of the United States. So, let me ask all of you, do you support Trump putting an offer? Now, no money has been talked yet, but I assume it'd be, billions of dollars at a minimum to buy Greenland. Now, let me be brutally honest with you. I like it. I like the idea. Only if the people of Greenland want. There has to be a referendum. I don't want to just seize the country, obviously. I'm not an imperialist. But if the people of Greenland hold a referendum and a majority of them decide that they want to be part of the United States, this has to be settled with Denmark and it's got to be done right. I would be in favor of acquiring or annexing or purchasing Greenland. Why? Because I agree with Trump. I think it would strongly improve our position in the North Atlantic. I think it would strongly improve our position in the Arctic. But above all, I think the vast wealth, the vast minerals, the vast resources would be a tremendous asset to the United States. And my fear is, as they discover more and more and more oil in that part of the world, the Russians and the Chinese are going to not be able to fend off the temptation to take Greenland. So, better us than them. Now, the counter-argument is that this smacks of imperialism, that we're now acquiring a massive territory with an indigenous population that is not American. I mean, they speak a completely different language, Greenlandic, and that we're already too big as a country, that we have enough territory as it is. We don't need to keep acquiring more and more, and that this focus on Greenland is going to deter us from prioritizing what we need to do here at home, whether it be on the border, whether it be with crime, whether it be with foreign policy, ending these endless wars. In other words, that Trump is being distracted by this crown jewel, this ultimate art of the deal, which is what Greenland would be. I mean, this would be the mother of all real estate deals. This is him buying a massive piece of property that he believes would considerably augment the value of the United States, to put it in crude business real estate terms. Now, personally, I think they would vote. I think the people of Greenland would vote to join America in a heartbeat. And I think in the end, it would be win-win. A win for us and a win for them. But that's me. I want to hear from you. This is no longer speculation. This is no longer Trump just tweeting. He is deadly serious. He wants to end his second term with purchasing and acquiring Greenland, and basically now giving us another vast new territory, this time in the North Atlantic. 617-266-6868. Should the United States buy Greenland? I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Is this the right thing to do? Or is this 19th century imperialism? And that we should just leave the people of Greenland alone. Gino in Buffalo. Thanks for holding, Gino, and welcome.
Hey, Happy New Year, Jeff, and my deepest sympathies and condolences to you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gino.
What a beautiful legacy your father has left behind.
Thank you. Thank you, Gino.
And I say yes to Greenland if they put it up for a referendum. That's not imperialism. You're giving people a choice. And they can make that choice, and if we can help them happen and make them be more prosperous, then it's good for us and good for them, and that's the way the world works.
So, Gino, you think this would be a great move on the part of Trump, and it would greatly benefit the United States?
I believe so. I believe that with the way that China and Russia are sneaking around the world, usurping territory all over, putting their minds and their workforces everywhere they want to, that we need to start watching out for ourselves. And if we could be peaceful and help out other countries that help us too in the long run, then I believe that's what we need to do.
Interesting. Gino, what's the sense that you get? Because this would be a massive territorial expansion for the United States. Now, you're right. I agree with you. I mean, how can it be imperialism if the people of Greenland want it? And we don't even have to go by opinion polls. I'm with you. Hold a referendum, a free and fair referendum, an election, a vote, and say, do you want to be part of the United States? Yes or no? And if they vote, I think it would be like 60, 70%, maybe even 80%. I think the numbers would be overwhelming. So if you have the will of the people of Greenland who want to join us, where's the imperialism? So I'm with you. But, Gino, do you think the American public want to see this kind of massive expansion of territory?
that if you put in the terms of security for our country and making a more peaceful world and explaining and then putting on the table how far China has gone and what Russia is doing to secure their own countries, I believe you make a good case for it. And if you make them a territory first and let them go about their business, and let's say they don't want to become part of the United States, but we've become a better ally to them, then also that benefits us in the long run too.
I love that. I love it. Love it. Great analysis. Gino, Happy New Year, and thank you again, my friend. 6, I love it. In other words, what do we got to lose? And if the people of Greenland say, it's just not working out for us, well, okay, then at least we're allies, and we're very good friends. So for us, it's win-win. Now, my fear is, and I think this is Trump's thinking, if, it's like a really nice piece of real estate. And he's thinking as a businessman, someone's going to snatch it up. It's just sitting there. It's sitting there. They're growing increasingly unhappy with Denmark. They're starting to pull away. In fact, the Prime Minister of Greenland, this came out just a couple days ago, addressed the country and held a huge huge. It's 56,000 people. I'm not trying to be insulting, but how huge can it be? But for Greenland, it was huge. And he said, no, we want independence from Denmark. This relationship is not working for us anymore. We want out. And so he says he's going to keep pushing to put the legal framework, his words, not mine, the legal framework in place for the people of Greenland to declare independence and secede, break away from Denmark. And then the question is, will they want to remain independent or will they want to join the United States? Now, honestly, if I'm some person up in Greenland and it's freezing, it's so, 10 months of the year you can barely go outside. And I'm asking myself, 57,000, a couple of Russian submarines and we're done. A couple of Chinese warships and we're done. Can we really defend this country of ours? But under the American umbrella, not only can we defend ourselves, we're going to live like Alaska. We're going to live, the standard of living is going to go through the roof. And America will develop Greenland the way we've developed Alaska. So if I'm sitting in Greenland, I'm like, baby, please put up that American flag. But that's me. But Trump's thinking is that's a key piece and a nice piece of real estate. And he's thinking if we don't snatch it up, somebody else will. So better us than them. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868 is the number. Mike, Maestro, who do I go to next? Jeff in Ohio. Jeff, thanks for holding, and as always, welcome.
Well, thank you, Jeff, and good morning, and I'm very sorry for your loss and your family's loss.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Time will take care. So, as far as with Greenland, I understand the ambitions of Trump wanting to do that, but to me, it's like if I'm running my household and it just went through the 4 years of being raped from all our resources being diminished, even from the oil strategic to you name it. I understand where he's going. He's got big thoughts, but I feel like we need to get our house in order. And I just finishing up Tej Patel's book. And my God, we got our hands full. I think it's going to take 110% just to get our house in order for the next 4 years. I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but I just don't see how we can move forward when we are dragging the past with us. So there's my 2 cents, Jeff.
No, I hear you, Jeff. Look, let me tell you what I think the big picture is, and you tell me if you agree or disagree, if you like it or don't like it. As you know, yesterday, and trust me, this will all make sense to you, Jeff, in 30 seconds. Yesterday, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, basically the Obama of Canada, okay, that woke left-wing idiot who has run Canada into the ground, the worst Prime Minister in Canadian history, there's no debate, announced his resignation, okay? He's basically going to leave in a couple months. He's out. Trump tweeted again. Now, the first couple times people said, oh, he's trolling, he's just getting under Trudeau's skin. He's trying to annoy all the Canadian moonbats. But this time, people are saying, no, this is not trolling now. He's very serious. He came out yesterday and said, I would love ultimately for Canada to be the 51st state of the Union. Now, it wouldn't. They'd have to cut it up into multiple states. But what he means is, I would like to absorb Canada into the United States. And he says that most Canadians would agree. They would vote for it. They would support it. Most Americans, he says, would support it. Canada is a very wealthy country to begin with all the resources they have and the way it could be developed by the United States, it would be even wealthier. And he wants basically a North American, a greater America, a great America from, all the way from the Rio Grande to the Arctic, because Canada reaches the Arctic. And so all of North America would now be the United States of America. And so I think one of the reasons, and so he's saying, look, he goes, I really want Canadians to consider this because I'm going to put a big tariff on you guys. And you keep telling me you can't survive economically if I slap you with a 25% tariff. So if you guys can't survive on a 25% tariff, really, how are you guys able to really run your country effectively? Let us run your country for you. So I think his play, Jeff, is he wants Greenland. Think about it. Greenland is to the right of Canada. So you get Greenland, and eventually that'll be the play for all of Canada. What say you?
Well, the first thing I'd want to know is I'd want to look at the books of Canada to make sure.
Jeff, Jeff, I'm sorry we're up against the break, but yeah, you want to look at the books. Well, just so that you know, Trudeau has run massive deficits, so we'd be inheriting a big debt as well. Up the liberal bull, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Trump now says he's very serious. He wants to put an offer on behalf of the United States for Greenland. Now, they haven't gotten to the actual price tag, but he now says in his second term, after he's inaugurated on January 20th, he wants to buy Greenland if, obviously, the Greenlandic government agrees and the people agree in a referendum that they will become independent from Denmark. They are currently a territory or a colony of Denmark, and they want to join the United States. But if they want to join the United States, he says he's ready to make a very serious offer and make Greenland a territory of America. In fact, do you think ultimately should Greenland be a state? Not immediately. I mean, 56,000 people, they gotta, the population's gotta get up there first. But if we can attract enough investment, enough prosperity, like we did with Alaska, and more people begin to live there, more Americans begin to move and live there, should we make Greenland ultimately a state? 617-266-6868. Like, no like. Arthur in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Arthur, and welcome.
Oh, you just have a month and day.
Okay, I think Arthur is. I don't know, it seems like he's at the ordering something online, or at the motor vehicles or whatever. But all right, let's see if we can reconnect with Arthur. All right, Jane in Wareham. Thanks for holding, Jane, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. I just want, first, like everyone else, my condolences. I've lost my parents. I think of them all the time, and I feel bad you're going through this, number one.
Thank you, Jane.
Now, number two, I think it's a good idea because of what China's doing and Russia, and they are going to scoop it up. We know it is, and then we'll be kicking ourselves that we didn't do it. And also, I think it's a win-win because even if the Looney Tunes like Greta Thunberg, if it does happen with the climate change, we could turn it into a beach resort.
That's right. I didn't look at it that way.
It could be the new Riviera.
Jane, I'm just curious. I'm getting a lot of people on the text line saying, Jeff, I love Trump. I love you. I want the guy to succeed. But we got so many bigger fish to fry. We've got to worry about this border invasion, mass deportations. We've got massive deficits that Biden is now leaving us, huge national debt, high inflation, high crime. We've got wars breaking out all over the world. Now is not the time for us to do the mother of all real estate deals. What say you?
GoFundMe, Greenland.
Jay, thank you very much for that call. No, it's true. We could raise a GoFundMe page and we'll buy it. How's that, So, hey, Donald, we got you on this one, okay? You can focus on the other issues. We'll buy this one for America. So Don Jr., by the way, is on his way, all kidding aside. Trump is really serious. He goes, first people thought, ha, ha, ha. He's like, no, really, guys, if we don't buy it, if we don't take it, someone else will. And I don't think in other words, what he fears is that either China, Russia, or some hostile other power will eventually either, if not absorb it, put it under its control. Because Trump says, and it's what he keeps telling everybody, Greenland is going to go independent. And I think on that he's completely right. He says, you don't understand. Yeah, you can laugh at him. It's cold. It's Arctic. 57,000 people. But they are dead serious. They don't want to be part of Denmark anymore. So they will become independent. And when they become independent, he goes, they're going to come under someone's influence. And it's either going to be the Russians or the Chinese or a foreign hostile power. And I don't want that. The United States must have preeminence in the Western Hemisphere. Not just North America, but, Latin America, South America. We want to make sure that no other major power can threaten us here in our hemisphere. And so he's saying we've got to secure Greenland for the long-term security of the United States. And he says, look, the thing is full of minerals and resources. He goes, it is one of the richest in terms of resources and minerals. He goes, what's in the ground is immense. He goes, this is a gold mine. Let's buy it, and let's make some money. Agree, disagree, your calls. Next, 868 is the number. Trump's not messing around. He says, I'm going to make us great in every single way, including expanding the territory of the United States by absorbing, and it's a big piece of territory. Just look at a map. Greenland is... I'm not talking some little island in the Pacific or the Atlantic. Greenland is huge. It's cold, but it's huge. And Trump says, I want it. America needs it. And he says we're going to get it. He's sending his son, Don Jr., now to talk to the locals, talk to government representatives, to basically case the island, to come back and let him know what sentiment is. But John Jr. now said, I'm on my way to Greenland, and my father is very serious about buying Greenland. Should we buy the Danish territory of Greenland? The Kuhner man says yes. What say you? Arthur, I think we've got a connection with you again. Arthur in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Arthur, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure.
Before under the name of Art, New Hampshire. You with me?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Arthur.
And I'd like to go back for a few minutes, if I may, on yesterday. and on the Green Beret. It's been bugging me since yesterday. I don't think this was mentioned because I wasn't on the phone all the time. I had a doctor's appointment. What I came up with for a reason for him doing that, the way he did it, because of his knowledge in the military and his knowledge of munitions. And
sorry, Arthur, just so that the audience understands, you're talking about Matthew Leibelsberger, who basically killed himself when he detonated a bomb or fireworks inside a Cybertruck outside of the Trump Las Vegas hotel on New Year's Day. Please, go ahead, Arthur.
I believe he did that to warn Trump because of his affiliation with Trump, voting for him, and the other guys that are running with Trump. He liked them all. I think he was doing this. He didn't want to hurt anybody. He just hurt himself, his vehicle, very, very small amount of damage. But his security is lapse.
Well, Arthur, look, I don't want to get sidetracked. I hear you. Look, to me, the story of those terrorist attacks, and especially the big one was on Bourbon Street, is something that Trump needs to fix right away when he comes in. Because you have an FBI, and it's now becoming more obvious by the day, that was so obsessed with getting Trump, with raiding his home, with, shoot to kill orders, determined to arrest him, determined to arrest his family, determined to spy on his supporters, to arrest J6ers, to persecute Catholics, to go after people who protest in front of school boards, parents, that they've completely dropped the ball on the real enemies that are here in the United States. And that, to me, is negligence on a criminal level. The FBI, to me now, is an organization, has no credibility, and he's got to dismantle it from top to bottom. That, to me, is the big story about those terrorist attacks. Now, as for Leibelsberger, about a warning to Trump, that's my big fear, Arthur. My big fear, now that he crossed the certification hurdle yesterday, he's now certified. There's nothing they can do to prevent him from being inaugurated. My fear is something violent against him over the next 2 weeks. If he can get over the next 2 weeks, I'm confident once he's in power, with the massive Secret Service protection he'll have, I think, knock on wood, I think he'll be fine. But he's got to get through the next 2 weeks, or whatever, less than 2 weeks now. And I think Leibelsberger maybe was trying to warn him, saying, be careful, because you have enemies everywhere. And just take it to Greenland. When I mention it on this show, as I did today, that, Trump is seriously considering expanding the territory of the United States. By the way, the natural wealth of the United States. Greenland is potentially sitting not just on a ton of oil and natural gas. You name it, they've got it. Any mineral on the face of the planet, they have these rare earth minerals that you need for electric cars, for the batteries for electric cars. Greenland has it in spades. Forget gold, forget silver, forget iron ore, forget all the other good stuff. Greenland, look, I have to say, I'm with the Greenlanders on this. In theory, if you just look at Greenland yes, it's cold, okay? It's 10 months of the year, basically it's winter. It's Arctic, it's in the North Atlantic. It's cold, it's really cold. But resource-wise, mineral-wise, it's one of the wealthiest, if not the richest territory on the face of the planet. And they've been so mismanaged by Denmark. And as someone pointed out on Messenger correctly, look at all these Western European democratic socialist countries. They're all failures. And that's why Greenland economically is a failure. You put this under American management, with capitalism, with free enterprise, with our constitutional system of government, the property rights, the rule of law, Greenland within 10 years will become like Alaska, but bigger, wealthier than Alaska. So, you got these politicians in Washington, their heads are exploding. Why would your heads be exploding? Why are you so worried that the United States potentially could seriously increase its strength, its wealth, and its power around the world. So Trump is surrounded by enemies who don't want him to succeed because they don't want ultimately America to succeed. And that's my fear. 2 assassination attempts. They may try a third before January 20th. So if that was Leivelberger's intent to warn Trump, I hope Trump listens to him. Because honestly, if I were him and his family, I'd be very nervous the next 15 days. Or whatever it is now, 13, 14 days, whatever it is. Because you can see now, the Democrats now know he's coming back to the White House. And the fact that they're so quiet, that they're so passive, that they're so submissive, I'm worried. That's not like them. They're too quiet for my taste. I know Democrats. I've never seen them this quiet or this docile. So maybe something is being planned. So if I were him, be very careful, watch over your shoulder, and make sure your security is airtight. Arthur, thank you for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. But really, you look at the reaction on Capitol Hill. You know, again, they're trying to present this like he wants to amass tanks, or in this case, warships, off the shores of Greenland, and, invade the country and start a war with the European Union. He's talking about a real estate transaction, a business deal. The people of Greenland want to secede from Denmark. They want to have their own independence. I don't blame them. And Trump is saying, you think you guys can can go it your own way? How about put some money on the table as an incentive, as a carrot? Why don't you become part of the United States? You'll do a hell of a lot better than you would with the Europeans. You'll do a hell of a lot better than with the Russians. You'll do a hell of a lot better with the Chinese. Come on in, baby. The water is nice, and there's money to be made. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Mike, who do you want me to go to next? Sam in Groton. Thanks for holding, Sam, and welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Kuhner. Condolences to you and your family.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it.
As far as the Greenland situation goes, look, us uneducated people voted in a large way for Donald Trump, who was sent from God, just like you and your family were. And God bless you both. But we need to put our trust in him and his constituents for the next 12 years and just enjoy the ride, because it's going to be a good one. He's got some smart people working for him. We don't know all the makings of what's going on, but him and his people do. So all we need to do is just sit back and enjoy. And another thing, we should also get Canada, and I can also solve the cost of the Mexican border wall. Let's take over Mexico and make it all the United States.
Well, Sam, what I like about the Greenland option, if you want to call it that, it's only has 56,000 people. So it's not like we're absorbing, let's say Mexico, as you just mentioned. That's 100 million people, culturally very different from the United States. They speak a completely different language. You could face a really hostile population, right? You can face a real insurgency, maybe even, guerrillas and terrorism. And, I don't want that. What I like about Greenland is it's basically outside, 57,000 people. That's nothing. So a largely uninhabited or very small, small populated territory, very wealthy, very rich in resources, most of whom want to be Americans. Sam, to me, this is win-win. 9:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Best audience in the business. I'm telling you, I know. Jeff, come on. Again now with the new year, you're going to start with this? Hey, it's the truth. I don't know what else to tell you. So listen now to this. Hat tip to Mandy. Mandy, thank you very much. Now it all comes together. Why are so many politicians in Washington, Democrats, Republicans, the establishment, why are they so against Trump's proposal to buy Greenland? Now remember, okay, it's voluntary. As Sandy and I were talking off air, she goes, look, this is not Vladimir Putin. This is not, we're going to invade, and whether you like it or not, we're sending in the troops and we're going to annex you. This is a voluntary deal. First, you guys get independence from Denmark. That's up to you. Once you're independent, do you want to stay independent or do you want to join the United States? Have a referendum. And to be honest, we'll put some money on the table. We're not just going to take you for nothing. So you can have a lot of money to start developing your country or your territory. So, you don't get more peaceful and voluntary and, frankly, non-imperialistic than this. So why are they so dead set against it? Bingo. Listen now to this story. Bezos, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Bloomberg, apparently Soros as well, billionaires. Remember when Trump first floated this idea in his first term? Well, when Trump talked about acquiring Greenland in his first term, all of these billionaires and more said it's time to start exploring all of the rare minerals buried beneath Greenland's ice. The globalists want it for themselves. They want the country's resources. They don't want us to enjoy the country's resources. They want to keep it all for them. That's why all of these bought and paid for politicians are acting like, I don't know what, this is, Putin invading Kiev or, invading eastern Ukraine. Now you know the full story. Greenland is very rich in minerals, rare earth minerals. But the billionaires and the globalists for the New World Order want it for them, not for us. 617-266-6868. Larry, this is hilarious. Larry's got a plan to tie Greenland to the border and deportation. You're saying, Jeff, how the hell did Larry figure this one out? Jeff, step 1, buy Greenland. Step 2, after removing all the criminal illegal aliens, offer the so-called I just want a better life illegal aliens that they can be shipped to Greenland to help develop better infrastructure and help get all those rare earth minerals for a chance to become citizens of that territory. In other words, we deport all the, the gangbangers, the terrorists, the murderers, the rapists. That they all gotta go. But for all this, the dreamers, all the so-called dreamers, I'm just here for a better life. No problem. We just bought Greenland. A lot of resources. We need a lot of workers up there. If you guys want to go up there and work and, get all those rare earth minerals from the ground. You know what? You put in 5 years or whatever. If, you work hard, keep your nose clean, we'll make you a citizen of Greenland. How's that? Huh? Everybody wins. In other words, we send them there. 617-266-6868. Mike? Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. My condolences to you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Hey, we've spoken before. I wanted to give you an update on my election law case. We're going to trial. It's Richard v. Sununu, and I'm the only person standing in the United States who challenged the 2020 election. All the others have been dismissed. I got a ruling out of the state Supreme Court that said I had standing to bring my case forward to trial. So we should see a trial by jury here in the new year.
Excellent. And just to bring it full circle, Dan, really, I'm kind of half kidding, but really I'm making a larger point. You know that Greenland has much more honest, clean elections than we do? I'm serious. So I think another advantage of acquiring Greenland is that we can acquire a territory that has free and fair elections, Dan. No corruption there, at least in terms of elections. So maybe, the Greenlanders could teach us a thing or two about holding an honest vote count. So again, this could be a win-win, Dan. Dan, I hope to God you win, because we need to expose what was done, not just in 2020, but what they're doing in New Hampshire, in Massachusetts, and in other corrupt blue states around the entire country. Thank you very much for that call, Dan. All right, my friends, trust me, this story is not going anywhere. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. We are going to have a national debate whether we should buy Greenland. And to me, the question is this now. Do you want the globalists to have it, the Russians or the Chinese to have it, or America to have it? America first, America forever. And on that note, bye-bye.